The snow-dusted gravel crackled beneath the tires of my pickup as I eased into the long driveway leading to our family's mountain cabin. After a solid 6-hour drive, I was anxious to see the place again, having been gone for weeks. But the moment I rounded the final bend, I knew something was seriously off. There, planted on my front porch, as if she belonged there, stood Brenda Kensington, the iron-fisted president of our neighborhood HOA, flailing her arms at a professionally dressed woman clutching a clipboard. The instant Brenda caught sight of me, her animated expression twisted into pure shock. Her mouth gaped open and shut like a stranded trout. Then, with shaking fingers, she snatched her phone from her purse and stabbed frantically at the screen. Yes, there's an intruder at my residence. He's attempting to force entry. Please dispatch officers right away. Her voice climbed higher with every phrase, laced with exaggerated terror that sounded rehearsed. I remained behind the wheel, completely floored. My residence. The cabin that had belonged to the Mitchell family since 1972. Let me rewind about a month. My Aunt Margaret had taken a bad fall and shattered her hip, and since no close relatives lived nearby, I'd moved in temporarily to handle her care and recovery. The cabin is nestled in Cedar Ridge Estates, a quiet mountain enclave roughly 2 hours outside the city. It's one of those rare developments where an HOA still operates. Even though most homes sit on large, multi-acre parcels used mainly as second residences, Brenda Kensington had held the presidency for 3 years now, and over that period, she'd evolved from a mildly irritating busybody into an outright despot. She actually carried a ruler to measure lawn height, slapped fines on bird feeders for being the incorrect hue of brown, and once attempted to hit my neighbor Harold with a $75 penalty because his trash bin remained visible from the street for precisely 16 minutes past the allowed window. Control was her oxygen. She patrolled the roads in her spotless white sedan at a deliberate 15 miles per hour, a pile of citation forms riding shotgun, scanning for any violation like a hawk circling for movement. Her husband, a soft-spoken fellow named Dennis, appeared to diminish a bit further each season beneath the force of her dominance. Yet even by Brenda's standards, pretending my cabin belonged to her felt unhinged. While I was tending to Aunt Margaret, I'd stayed loosely connected with a couple of neighbors via text messages. Harold had noted seeing Brenda's car parked in my driveway multiple times. "Probably taking measurements so she can fine you for something," he'd quipped. Another neighbor, Susan, reported spotting Brenda touring the boundary lines with a few people who looked official. Perhaps HOA insurance assessors, she speculated. The community emails had also grown increasingly odd. Brenda began slipping in references to thrilling property enhancement projects and heritage property safeguarding efforts. The wording was so deliberately ambiguous and bureaucratic that I trashed most of them unread. Between doctor's visits and battling insurance forms for my aunt, her little power plays felt trivial. I should have read them. I truly should have. Now, I sat watching Brenda gesticulate wildly at the real estate agent while barking my cabin's address into her phone. The agent appeared bewildered, her eyes darting between Brenda and my truck. I climbed out deliberately, palms open and in plain view. Escalating the situation was the last thing I wanted. Brenda would no doubt accuse me of aggression. "Ma'am, I believe there's a mix-up here," I said evenly. "This is my land. I'm Arthur Mitchell. I own this cabin." Brenda doubled down on the act. "He's advancing toward me. He's pretending to be someone named Arthur. I have no idea who that is. This is my family's ancestral retreat." She seized the real estate agent's arm theatrically. The agent, whose badge identified her as Linda Chen with Mountain View Realty, attempted a courteous disengagement. That's when the sign caught my eye. A sleek for-sale placard was staked firmly in my front yard, featuring Linda's professional headshot and an asking price. $750,000 for my cabin. My cabin. That was most definitely not on the market. "Brenda, what exactly have you done?" I asked, fighting to keep my tone steady, even as fury rose in my throat. "Don't come nearer," she screamed into the phone. "He knows my first name. He has to have been following me." "Yes, officer, I believe he's dangerous. There's a bulge in his pocket. I think it's a weapon. It was my key fob." In under 10 minutes, 2 squad cars arrived, lights swirling. The deputies advanced carefully, hands hovering near their holsters. Brenda had whipped herself into genuine-looking hysterics, tears now tracing down her cheeks. It might have won an Oscar if it weren't so enraging. "Officers, thank heavens you're here," Brenda cried, hurrying toward them with trembling dramatics. "This intruder is attempting to enter my second home. I was simply touring it with the prospective buyer when he arrived and insisted he owned the property." The senior officer, badge-reading Sergeant Davies, raised a palm. "Everybody, let's take it down a notch. Sir, please step over here." I cooperated without hesitation, moving deliberately and non-threateningly. "Officer, I'm Arthur Mitchell. This land is mine. I keep the deed in my glove box. I've held the title for 12 years, passed down from my grandfather." Brenda's wails grew louder. "He's fabricating everything. This property has been the Kensington family's land for generations. My grandmother willed it directly to me." "Linda," Chen finally interjected, sounding uneasy. "Mrs. Kensington provided complete documentation. Transfer papers, tax histories. It all appeared authentic." Sergeant Davies glanced back and forth between us. "Sir, you'll need to accompany us while we untangle these conflicting claims. For safety, am I being detained?" I asked. "Not arrested, but we have to investigate. Standard procedure." I knew resistance would only complicate matters. "May I retrieve the paperwork from my truck?" He agreed and escorted me. I pulled out the folder. I always carried copies of the deed, recent tax payments, and insurance declarations. From the porch, Brenda eyed the documents, her stage tears miraculously slowing. "Those are obviously fakes," she shouted. "He's quite cunning. Examine them thoroughly." At the precinct, I waited in a sparse interrogation room as Detective Rachel Park meticulously examined my paperwork. She was methodical, placing verification calls, querying official databases, and jotting down detailed notes. Roughly an hour later, she eased back in her seat. "Mr. Mitchell, everything verifies perfectly. You are unequivocally the rightful owner. But this is the intriguing part." She retrieved a tablet from her files. "We've received 3 additional complaints involving Mrs. Kensington over the last year. Comparable incidents, although none escalated to this degree." My mouth fell open. "She's pulled this stunt before. Tried to, at any rate. 2 secondary residences and 1 empty parcel. The owners discovered it promptly and submitted reports, but declined to pursue charges. They simply demanded she cease." Detective Park swiped the screen. "But in your case, she went ahead and listed it actively, even scheduling viewings. That crosses into fraud, criminal trespass, and attempted grand larceny. How on earth did she manage to swap the locks?" I voiced my confusion. "We'll be posing that question to her shortly. Officers are detaining her now." The detective rose. "You're cleared to leave, Mr. Mitchell. We'll require your return tomorrow to press formal charges. And I'd strongly recommend summoning a locksmith to secure your cabin without delay." I returned to the property to discover Brenda seated in the rear of a squad car, no longer weeping, but gazing forward with a hardened, blank stare. Linda Chen was providing her account to a separate deputy, appearing deeply ashamed. A cluster of neighbors had assembled, among them Harold, who offered me a supportive nod. The locksmith showed up less than an hour later. As he replaced the hardware, Linda drew near, her cheeks red with humiliation. "Mr. Mitchell, I cannot apologize enough," she said. She presented documentation that seemed entirely genuine. Expert counterfeits. She produced fabricated tax statements indicating she'd covered the property taxes herself. How long had she been conducting tours? About 2 weeks. We'd arranged 9 viewings and received 2 firm offers. Linda sighed in disbelief. 22 years in this business, and nothing has ever come close to this. That evening, I remained in my cabin for the first time in more than a month. The house felt tainted in some way, aware that Brenda had invaded it, acting as though it belonged to her, guiding outsiders through spaces rich with my family's history. The following morning, I conferred with Detective Park and the district attorney, a straightforward professional named Barbara Stone. Mr. Mitchell, Mrs. Kensington's actions amount to several serious felonies. We intend to charge her with fraud, identity theft, burglary, and attempted grand theft of real property. Identity theft? I questioned. She counterfeited your signature across the bogus paperwork. That's also a federal offense. Barbara Stone pushed a document toward me. This is merely one instance. Ring any bells? I examined what looked like a deed transfer bearing my apparent signature at the base. It was a convincing imitation, but unmistakably not mine. She actually believed she could pull this off. From what we've uncovered, she'd been scheming for months. She singled out your cabin precisely because of your extended absence. She informed neighbors she was merely watching over it on your behalf. The trial became quite the local drama. Brenda arrived in court attired like a mourning relative, adorned in a somber black outfit and a pearl necklace. Her attorney attempted to portray her as a disoriented individual suffering a mental lapse, sincerely convinced that the cabin was her inheritance. That strategy collapsed under the weight of testimony from 12 neighbors. Harold recounted how Brenda had boasted during HOA gatherings about her savvy real estate ventures. Susan disclosed that Brenda had probed extensively about my expected return date. Even Dennis, her husband, testified calmly, acknowledging his wife's fixation on accumulating properties within the community. But the decisive blows landed from Linda Chen and 2 additional agents Brenda had engaged. They produced preserved emails in which Brenda explicitly directed them to expedite the sale before the prior owner came back from his journey. The prosecution displayed her forged records, including those crafted on official HOA stationery to fabricate ownership history. Financial statements revealed she'd established an escrow account in anticipation of closing. She'd even fabricated an email account under my name to correspond with potential purchasers. When Brenda took the stand, she clung stubbornly to her narrative. "That cabin is rightfully my family's," she declared, lifting her chin proudly. "My grandmother Lois Kensington acquired it in 1971. I hold vivid memories of childhood summers spent there." Mrs. Kensington, the prosecutor, responded evenly. Records confirmed the cabin was constructed in 1972 by Harold Mitchell, the plaintiff's grandfather. How then could you recall summers in a structure that hadn't been built? Brenda's cheeks reddened. "I was referring to an earlier cabin on the identical site. The original was demolished. I understand." "And might you possess photographs of the supposed predecessor? Any supporting records? Family snapshots from those days, perhaps?" "They perished in a flood," Brenda replied hastily. "How fortunate for your story. Regarding your grandmother, Lois Kensington, our research shows otherwise. Mrs. Kensington, your grandmother was actually Patricia Mills, and she resided exclusively in Ohio until her passing." Brenda went pale. The jury returned after under 2 hours, guilty on every charge. During sentencing, Judge William Crawford was direct. "Mrs. Kensington, you abused your authority as HOA president in an effort to abscond with a property valued at $750,000. You manufactured documents, engaged in identity theft, and demonstrated utter contempt for both the law and your neighbor's rights." Brenda remained stiff, fists tightened. "I hereby sentence you to 4 years in state prison, with 5 years of supervised probation to follow. You will make full restitution to Mr. Mitchell for all incurred expenses, encompassing locksmith services, attorney fees, and related damages amounting to $47,000. Additionally, You are forever prohibited from holding any position on a homeowners association board within this state. Brenda's lips parted in stunned disbelief. For years, she murmured. But I'm a pillar of this community. I've never so much as received a traffic citation. The judge's demeanor remained unchanged. Bailiff, please remove Mrs. Kensington for processing. As the bailiff neared, Brenda's facade utterly crumbled. This is unjust. I was only striving to elevate the neighborhood. That cabin was falling into disrepair. I would have maintained it far better. Her voice broke as the truth sank in. Genuine tears at last coursed down her cheeks while the bailiff cuffed her and guided her from the courtroom.